House. Alrighty, we are live. So back again for episode 3 now. Not that I'm counting, but should do. But welcome back. Hello, my name's Mick. I'm head of Natural Born Running, as you'd know by now. And we're just going over pretty important topics these days, all about injury, recurring injuries, recovery process, mental side of things, physical side of things, and all those little things that can just really help you get back on the field as quick as possible, or make sure you stay on the field for as long as possible, not have to worry, have the fears of getting injured. And a lot of it is just based behind relearning how to run. And not just as simple as that. I mean, it can be, but it's learning how to connect to your body, use your body correctly, getting rid of all these little niggles and injuries that we all get as athletes. It's a given, but it's minimizing this risk, and that can easily be improved by understanding your body, getting the bigger, stronger structural muscles there on as much as possible to really help you perform to your peak with that natural born talent we're all born with, because we've all got it, no matter what you say, all shapes and sizes. Everyone was born with this ability to run beautifully. And as I keep harping on about, it's all about getting away from societal norms today with those just got a message through. The societal things we do, like sedentary lifestyle, sitting down too much, wearing the wrong shoes and everything, that is what's affecting your performance. That's what's affecting your recovery process. And what we're going to talk about today is this slow recovery process. So we're going to really break down the real challenges athletes, everyday people can really face, both physically and mentally. And we want to tackle something I know many of you have experienced, and basically that frustration of a slow recovery process, wanting to get back on the field as quick as possible, but making sure we do it in the safest possible way that's best for you. All right. So, I mean, you've been working hard, you're doing your rehab, and it feels like your body just isn't bouncing back. Days turn into weeks, and you're not seeing the progress you were expected or what you were told by the experts. So today we're going to dive deep into why recovery can be painfully slow, how to cope with it mentally, because that's always the hardest part of any injury, and what you can do to speed things up in the best possible way for you. So stick around so you don't really want to miss out on this. Okay, so why does recovery feel so slow sometimes? So let's talk about why it feels like it's taking forever. Whether it's a sprained ankle, torn ligament, post-surgery rehab, we often feel like we're stuck in a loop of small improvements without really reaching that finish line. And there are several reasons why recovery can really feel on the slow side. So first off, your body is going through an intense repair process at a very cellular level. When you're injure any kind of soft tissue, muscles, tendons, ligaments, etc., your body has to now go and rebuild these structures from the ground up. And it takes time. Even though you may feel like you're ready to go after just a couple of weeks, whether what small injury, big or not, big reason the recovery will sometimes feel slow is that inflammation. And in the early stages of injury, inflammation is part of the healing process, the very first thing we see in an injury to help us. But it can affect your recovery quite significantly. But unfortunately, what we're taught today is we've got to get rid of that inflammation straight away. Ice it, anti-inflammatories, which is just so goddamn wrong. Like I say, it's the first process of healing. It's naturally what our body was designed to do. So why would we stop that process with icing? Stop that process with anti-inflammatories? Don't want to go too far of a tangent, but always going to harp on about not icing. I remember with my 3 ACL recos, the first 2, ice, because that's what the surgeons, that's what the doctors, that's what the nurses were telling me. The swelling just would not disappear. Yes, it probably put me out of a little bit of discomfort. which was nice, but the swelling just kept coming back until I got to my third surgery. Done a bit more research, knew a little bit more about my body and what to do in that, and I just didn't ice. Swelling pretty much disappeared. Through a good week after surgery, of course, there's going to be inflammation after the surgery, but because I didn't ice, I just compressed, kept it warm, kept it moving, muscle activation, connection, all that. Swelling just easily disappeared. And the really cool thing with I think it was my fourth surgery, the arthroscope I had a few years back, is my new surgeon here in Melbourne told the nurses not to give me ice. And that was just like, hallelujah, a surgeon finally gets it. They are up with the times. So icing, yes, it can help with pain. That's the only thing it's going to help with because it's numbing the area. But the thing is, you need blood flow. Blood flow is the only way you're going to repair that injured soft tissue, that injured area. So we need that blood flow. So get rid of the ice. And then it's the exact same with the anti-inflammatories. Why do we want to get rid of the inflammation? We've just been through with ice, so it makes sense. Doesn't make sense to do the drugs at all. Stick away from movement, compression, muscle activation. It's the best way. So unfortunately, with inflammation, like even though it is there for a reason, kind of like a double-edged sword. It's necessary for that healing, like we just spoke about, but can also make you feel stiff, sore, and limited. Like I hate when my knee swells up. I did it last week after a bit of squatting. And it makes your leg feel heavy, you lost range of motion, but again, it's swelling for a reason. The joint is not happy. And I think a lot of athletes don't realize that even after the visible signs of inflammation are gone, the body is still working overtime to rebuild what was damaged. And then we come to the issue of overtraining during that recovery process. And many athletes push too hard, too soon, which can lead to potential re-injury or even slow down that healing process. It's hard for athletes to dial it back because they want to return to full strength. They want to get back onto the field as soon as possible. But unfortunately, that overtraining puts extra strain on these healing tissues. And again, from my own experience, my first ACL injury, rupture, I had the hamstring tendon taken out of my hammy to replace ACL. And I came back too early and I tore the hamstring. So that ACL process, that rehab, it's a long, hard slog, but you got to have patience. I unfortunately didn't for the first one. The second and the third, I knew from experience. So don't make the same mistake I did. And so then there's more the physical side of things. But as we all know, the hardest side of any injury is that mental struggle. I mean, the physical part of slow recovery is one thing, but let's talk about the mental side because that's probably much more important because your body's always going to follow what's going on in here. So when recovery is taking longer than expected, it can really mess with your head. And you start to question if you're ever going to be back to 100% again. So that aspect, the mental aspect, is huge. We get stuck in the cycle of frustration. One day you feel like you're making really good progress, feels great, feeling awesome. And then the next day you feel like you've taken a step backwards. And that's what it is recovery, especially big ones like ACL. You're going to take 2 steps forward, 1 step back. As long as there's always progression, you're always going to get setbacks. It's not a problem. You're human. It's normal. But that constant back and forth can also drain your motivation. Like I remember like getting to the third time I tore my ACL, all I could think about was the mental side of things. I knew what to do physically. That's the easy part, is mentally getting up each day and doing your quad contractions and getting your hamstring going and getting moving, getting off your crutches, etc. The physical part is the easy side, is the mental side to get you going to do that in the first place. And so there's also that psychological toll of when you see your teammates or your competitors improving while you're still working on basic rehab exercises. And it's easy to feel like you're being left behind. And that can lead to feelings of inadequacy or that self-doubt. Like we said the other day, with these lack of playing time stuck on the sidelines, we've got to use this time as an opportunity to improve. And it's pretty common, you hear athletes say that they feel like they're losing their edge because they're not practicing at full intensity. And it's a real challenge to stay positive during slow recovery when it feels like everyone else is passing you by. But they're not working on things that you're working on. You're working on your weaknesses that they probably don't think about because they don't see them. I always believe an injury has its silver lining where you can work on your weaknesses, your restrictions, because you're injured for a reason, unfortunately. It's not your fault, but it's a massive opportunity to jump on top of that and change your future. So one of the keys to overcoming that mental block is you start to set smaller achievable goals during that recovery, day by day. Celebrate those little wins, like gaining back certain range of motion or being able to walk without pain. And these milestones remind you that progress is happening, even if it's not as fast as you like. Even getting back into the gym, there's post-injury PBs. They're an awesome way to just keep that mental clarity, that excitement about getting better, because you can measure that. And you're going to get a lot more post-injury PBs than you would in your normal training. So let's shift gears and focus on some actionable advice. And what can athletes do to cope with the frustration of this slow recovery? First and foremost, patience. It's goddamn critical. It sounds simple, but it's hard to practice. Remind yourself that recovery is a process, not a race. Rushing back too soon will only set you back even further. And so the next tip is to focus on what you can do. Even if you can't fully train the way you want to, there are always things you can work on, like extra mobility, better core strength, flexibility, balance, etc. There's always something you can come back to that you haven't worked on in the past to improve on. And these areas are often overlooked, but can make a huge difference in your performance once you've fully recovered. You now have that time to work on that thing, work on that weakness. And focus on areas like flexibility or your core strength can not only keeps you engaged, but might even make you stronger. And so to add to that, you can also start to look more at your nutrition. Dive a bit deeper on that. Is it good? Is it bad? Can it improve? Of course it can. And often gets overlooked. Your body needs the right minerals and nutrients to rebuild all this damaged tissue, getting rid of that inflammation. Focus on anti-inflammatory foods like leafy greens, fatty fish, nuts, and seeds. And staying hydrated is also essential because water plays a key role in that tissue repair. So looking more at the kind of mental strategies, well, one of the best things you can do is start to visualize yourself. Visualization of being back on the field, running down the way. It's a great way to just get that nervous system ready for what you want to do. And funny story here. I remember when I started doing some visualization with my chiropractor all those years ago, after my first ACL reco, and we were doing some visualization. I'm lying on the bed, and I'm visualizing myself running down the field. And the fucked up thing for me is I actually tore my ACL in my visualization. That's how messed up my mindset was. All those injuries I've had in the past just came to it. My body just expected to be injured, and so I visualized it. So that was a very heavy toll on myself. So if I'm visualizing being injured, I'm going to get injured again. So it's a big thing to just tap into and make sure you've got a good, healthy mindset with things like visualization. So start to imagine yourself performing at full strength. Picture how you'll feel and move when you're back in the game. It has been proven to help athletes stay mentally connected to their sport while they're in that physical recovery. It helps keep your mind sharp and boosts your confidence because you're always kind of there. You're never away from it. So what are common mistakes that can slow you down even more? What should we avoid doing? And the biggest mistake I've always seen in the past is pushing too hard too soon, going back too soon, too early. Like we mentioned earlier, athletes often feel better before their body is fully healed. So they ramp up their training prematurely. So this will lead to re-injury. You can end up back at square one, even further back than normal. And so another big mistake is not listening to your body. We're very good at that. All pain is a request for change, but we're just going to keep putting it aside. She'll be right, mate. So, but what the pain is your body's way of telling you something is wrong. And then only ignore it will make it worse. That little whisper of pain will start getting louder and louder and louder until it starts screaming at you, and it's too late. Always listen to those whispers. And then another one we can look at is when we neglect the mental aspect of recovery. We're always going to come back to that mental thing, the emotional side of things. And some athletes get so frustrated with slow progress that they mentally check out, which overall will affect their rehab. It's a given. So keeping a positive mindset, I know it's a lot easier said than done, but staying engaged with your recovery plan is so goddamn crucial. Having intent in your rehab like you would with any other gym session, any other training session, any other game, you have to be there intently, not just go through the motions. You've got to be connected. It's the quickest and easiest way for your body to get back where you want it to be. And we've got one great example, Klay Thompson from the NBA, after tearing his ACL and then his Achilles. His recovery was extremely slow and challenging. Spent 2 seasons of the game out, but he remained focused on his rehab, mental conditioning, and when he finally came back, he wasn't just physically ready. He was also, or mainly, mentally prepared to play at a high level again. We've got another example with an Olympic skier, Lindsey Vonn. She dealt with multiple knee injuries, and then each recovery process was long and grueling. If anybody's done a knee injury ACL, you know how long and grueling it is. But she used that time to focus on other aspects of her training and came back to win even more medals despite the setbacks. Like I say, you can make your comeback with any injury the way you want it to be. It's all on you. And so both these stories show that slow recovery doesn't have to mean the end of your career. If anything, it's an opportunity to reset and come back even better. Write that comeback story. So before we close, let's just summarize some practical takeaways for athletes dealing with a slow recovery process. First up, be patient. Trust the process. Trust your journey. Rushing will only slow you down in the long run. Second, focus on what you can control. Work on areas like your midline stability, your flexibility, your nutrition, your hydration, your sleep is a big one. And then third, set small, achievable goals and then celebrate each of these wins, no matter how small it seems. They all add up. 1% is every day. And finally, stay mentally engaged. Visualize your return to full performance and stay positive throughout your recovery journey. So if you're struggling with a slow recovery process, remember it's not about how fast you get there. It's about making a full, sustainable recovery. So be sure to subscribe, follow us, keep getting more tips on this. We're going to keep diving deeper on all of these topics around injury, coming back, recovery process, etc. And there is plenty of stuff going on the page, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, going all live at the moment, trying to really get this message out there to show that injuries are not the end. For me, I retired at 26 because of 3 ACLs in 4 years. The worst. Doesn't have to be your story, and that's my goal, to make sure that doesn't happen to anybody else, because it sucks. Have a good day.